Hi guys, welcome back to Ashar Books. I wanted to hop on and do a recent read. So these are going to be the books that I've read recently. Before I got started with the video, I did just feel like I wanted to talk about what's been going on recently with Black Lives Matter in this country and across the world. During this time, I've really just been trying to listen, learn, and do anything I can to help and be an ally. I think there's so many people that are going to speak more eloquently on this topic and are so knowledgeable. It makes me so sad that racism is still a problem in this world today. But with everything going on, I am hopeful that it will end and that we will have real change happen. Having said that, I will link a few places down below that I have learned from. While I may never fully understand what it's like to have racism in my life personally, I want to do anything I can to help end it. I will put a few different places we can help down below in the description box. I encourage you guys to check that out if you haven't. Some places we can learn from. Really just be aware of ways to help and ways to be more conscious of the choices that we make and everything we can do, and making sure that we are supporting Black authors, Black run businesses, Black content creators, and like I said, just really trying to be an ally at this time. So the first book I wanted to talk about is The Devilish Duke by Madison Michaels. Honestly, I'm a little fuzzy on this book. I read it a while ago. It was about a month ago now, and it was okay. So it's a historical romance, and it's kind of your typical, like, I did really enjoy it when I read it, so I did give it 4 stars. It was just a little forgettable. I never really quite know what to do with those books because at the time they were enjoyable and that's why they got the 4 stars, but then like you kind of forget what happens. But basically it's a devilish duke and he needs to marry, and he has kind of like set his sights on this blue stocking who's a little bit eccentric. Really, that just means she's progressive for her time and is a woman who likes to think on her own. And she really has no intention of marrying, but through like circumstances they end up in a courtship. And I love anything that has like forced proximity or like arranged marriages or marriage of convenience in like certain ways. Not necessarily arranged marriages, but like marriage of convenience. And I love when they're together and they kind of fall in love, and that's definitely what this was. The hero was for sure very devilish, very kind of rakish, and she kind of helped him find his way, I guess. He had a lot of like backstory too, and it was a really good read, and I did enjoy the author's writing, so I'll definitely check out more from her. Next book I read was The Friendzone by Abby Jimenez, and I really enjoyed this one. So many people have loved this book. One of my best friends has read this book and loved it, so she encouraged me to pick it up, and I really enjoyed it. I will say, I don't know if I was as gaga over it as some people were. I did really enjoy it. I was okay with the ending. I know that was a big kind of kerfuffle that happened. Some people loved it and some people hated it. But for me, I was okay with the ending. I will say I listened to this one on audiobook and I thought it was great on audiobook. I really enjoyed the characters in this. I thought that Kristen was badass. I thought she was awesome, and she really didn't care one iota what other people think about her, and I strive to be Kristen. I think I texted that to my friend because I'm like, I am not Kristen. If you've read this, I want to be her, but I'm not yet. And then obviously, what's the guy's name? I'm completely for Josh. Josh was super sweet. I really enjoyed Josh. I thought the whole plot was great. I feel like I'm not explaining this well, but I love Stuntman Mike, her dog. I just thought there were really fun details in this book that made it a really fun read. It made it a little bit different from a lot of the other kind of contemporaries I've read recently. I am really dying to pick up the second one, the Happily Ever After playlist, because there was such a cliffhanger on a certain storyline, and I'm dying to pick up book 2. So I have it. Hopefully I'll get to it really soon. But yeah, I thought this was really adorable. I just don't know if I was I gave it 4 stars. I didn't give it 5. It wasn't the best thing I've ever read, but it was super enjoyable and a really fun summer read. Next one I read was A Heart of Blood and Ashes by Mila Vane, which I do own, but I forgot to grab, so I'll put a picture up. I feel like I've talked about this one a few times, but I don't think I've actually put it in like a wrap-up type video. But this is a fantasy romance. It's super high fantasy to me. It read really high fantasy, and it's a lot of romance. I think you got to go into it knowing there's a lot of both of those. I would say it's pretty high on the steam factor too. I don't know, it kind of took me a little bit by surprise, I guess. Not that I minded it necessarily, just I was a little surprised by it. But this book basically follows starts out with Maddox, and his parents are killed by like a rival, I don't know if it's a rival, but like an adjacent country leader. And obviously he wants vengeance for his parents. He is like a leader in his own right and like a warrior. And it turns out that he gets this message from the person who killed his parents' daughter. And he's thinking, okay, I'm gonna like use her for my vengeance and get back at them. Well, it turns out she hates her father pretty much just as much as he does, if not more, because she has had a horrific childhood. Her father is a terrible person, and she was just kick-ass. So her name's Yvonne. I think I'm saying that wrong, but that's how I said it. And basically it's about the two of them coming together and like finding themselves and finding a relationship and becoming, well, kind of like, I guess a team to seek vengeance and kind of become the leaders. I just really thought this was great. I will say it took me a while to get into this book. Like it took me a long time to get through the first half. Once I got to halfway, I was like, woohoo, this is great. I'm like totally into it. But just know for me, and I'm not the biggest fantasy reader. I love fantasy, like romance, but I'm not like high fantasy reader. I thought the beginning was a little slow, and it took me a while to get through. I actually ended up getting the audiobook because I just needed to push through. So just know that going in. I gave this one 5 stars. Looking back, it's probably like a 4.5 just because that beginning. I feel like I might need to take a little bit off for that because it was a little rough going for a moment, but I did really enjoy it. I thought it was really unique from what I've read for fantasy romance, and I do plan on reading the next book in the series. The next one I read was Love the One You Hate by R.S. Gray. This is a contemporary romance, and again, R.S. Gray always does good rom-coms. This one was no different. I gave this one, I think I gave it 4 stars. I feel like I got a lot of 4 stars, and I think that's why I was in a bit of a slump. Like, they weren't bad books. They just weren't like, oh my gosh, I'm gonna stay up till 3 a.m. and be consumed by this book, if that makes any sense. But no, Love the One You Hate was really cute. I read it really quickly. It's about a girl who has had a really rough kind of childhood / adolescence. And she meets an older lady who offers her a job at this huge Newport, I think it's Newport, right? Rhode Island, like mansion. And she's kind of like, well, why would you offer me a job? But it sets off a series of events, and basically this lady's kind of taking her under her wing, and she meets her grandson there, and that's like their love story. I will say, and I've seen other people say this as well, I do think this one had a lot about our main character kind of finding herself and growing as a person, almost more than the love story. I did enjoy this book. I love the setting of Newport. Like, I really want to go there now. And the house, like, I think it's called Rose something. It really was reminiscent to me of like a historical romance house, like mansion house. But I just wanted more of the love story. Like, I felt like while I liked the ending and I love the epilogue, I felt like we could have had some info in the middle there, because the epilogue jumps quite a few years. And I just kind of thinking like, I like this, but like I wanted more of the love stories. Next one I read was To Have and to Hoax by Martha Waters. I've talked about this one a little bit because this is our pick for the Lovely Ladies book club with Jen and Avery. We actually moved our live show, and so it's going to be this coming Saturday at 7 Central, 8 East Coast time. So come join us if you've read this. It's a historical romance, and I was really impressed by it. I didn't realize going in this was her debut novel, and that made me even more impressed. I thought it was really fun. It follows our main characters who meet and fall in love when they're really young, like they're like 18, 19, and they, for the time, had a pretty unusual thing. They actually married for love, and they really fell deep. And then something happened. They had a big fight, and they basically have been on the outs for, I think it's 4 years now. Like, they're living together but apart, if that makes sense. Like, there's a giant wall between them, like emotionally and sometimes physically. So in the story, they each kind of try and coax the other person out of this cold wall, and through different antics they're really trying to get each other to say, hey, like, I was wrong, I still love you in the end, but they use different ways to kind of do that. I really enjoyed it. I gave it 4 stars. I'll talk more about it in the live show, obviously. My only thing, or one of the things that I wish there was more of, is I thought it was going to be a little funnier than it was. Like, it was funny, but like, everyone kept saying it was going to be hilarious, and I didn't think it was as hilarious, like, oh my gosh, I can't stop laughing, as some people did. So that might just be a humor thing, but I thought the writing was fabulous, and I'm so excited to see what she does next, because again, as a debut author, amazing. Okay, the next 2 books I was so excited to read, and they're for sure my favorite books that I've read recently, and for sure have pulled me out of the slump, and that is the All the King's Men duet by Kennedy Ryan. So I read The Kingmaker and then The Rebel King. This has been on my radar for a while. Kennedy Ryan always like punches you in the gut with emotion, so I knew I wanted to read this when I was like emotionally available, but they were so good, guys. Like, if you were on the fence, pick this like duet up. I loved it. Like, I feel like I can't even like say why I loved it. But I read them both like back to back in like subsequent days. Like, so good. Basically, this follows Lennox, who is Native American, and she is her culture and her ancestry is very important to her. And we meet her. The 2 main characters meet when they're quite young. She is at a protesting a pipeline, an oil pipeline that's going to be put on her land. And the hero is the son of the person who's trying to put the oil pipeline. I feel like that's kind of all you need to know, and then just dive in, because I don't want to say too much. This book really takes you on a journey, and it goes over a long span of time, which isn't always my favorite, but in this one it really, really worked. The 2 of them are constantly trying to battle with like this feeling of like they belong together, but having very different lives, very different families, but also really similar morals. And it was so good. I felt like there was so much back and forth, so much angst, and it was also quite steamy. I really enjoyed that. I thought it was so good. Like, trust me on this one, pick this up. It was so good. It was emotional. I felt like it was everything I wanted. And I'm so excited to read Queen Move, which is her friend Kimba's book, soon. It just came out. So yeah, loved it. Definitely pick it up. Okay, guys, those are all the books I read recently. Let me know what you guys read. Have you enjoyed your books? Have you not enjoyed your books? Thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see you next time. Bye.